I was like, stop. Totally should. His mother What's up? What's up? Welcome to another episode of All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. I'm your host, Kiff VH, and I am thrilled not only to be at the marvelous, spectacular Hollywood and Los Feliz adjacent studio, Studio Awesome, one of the great studios of Los Angeles. But even more exciting is I get to share the room with my friend and fellow voice actor, Mr. DARIN DE PAUL. DARIN,
hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. We've been trying to make this happen, and I'm so excited that
So excited. This is great. You said your teacher was Charles Nelson Reilly?
Yes, we were talking about that before. I was an apprentice at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater in 1980-81, and Burt would teach, and Charles Nelson Reilly would teach, and whoever was there doing a show would teach us. Elliot Gould came in for a bit, Lou Jacoby. So these, just people, movie stars would come in. Vittorio Gassman came in to teach us.
Oh, my God.
So, and what we do, we were there for a year at the theater. So one show you'd help running the lights. One show you'd help with costumes. One show you might be in it if you were lucky, but it was to give you an appreciation of all forms of theater, not just acting, to know what goes into everything.
That's so valuable and so important. I mean, I went to a liberal arts school, so like the theater program was that too. If you didn't get cast, then you're going to be figuring out how to hang lights. That's what we do, and it's part of that essential training.
Yeah, I loved it. And it was great just to hear the stories from everybody. It was a really cool time. It was a very, very special time.
Now, where are you from originally? Where was home?
Palm Beach, Florida.
Palm Beach, Florida.
I am a Floridian. The Burt Reynolds, the apprenticeship was open to Florida students. They had 12 of us every year. So, yeah, I'm a Florida boy.
Was theater something that you wanted to pursue from a very early age, or was it a roundabout thing, or how did you find yourself?
First, it was veterinarian. I wanted to be a primatologist at the Yerkes Primate Center.
High five for early budding.
I was like
veterinarian desire.
I was like, I want to go off and work with orangutans in Borneo. That was when I was a kid. That was my kid, and I was a weird child. But then early on, I started doing theater and just fell in love with it and did it all through high school and then in college, and then got to do the apprenticeship, which was basically a master's program because you spent the year, and it was through Florida State.
Oh, so did you go to Florida State? Is that where you
No,
went
I went to another college in Florida that I don't talk about.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm mad at them.
Understood.
Florida State was really good. They did nice things.
That's awesome.
And so we got a master's degree for that, and it was just wonderful. And then they put us out. No, they gave us our equity card through that. So
no
you
kidding.
got your actor's equity card from working a year there.
That's so subversive to come down to a community. And I know Bert's from Tampa, right?
Well, he was from Jupiter, Florida, which was right where the theater was.
I see.
Yeah.
And then to be able to sort of nurture people at home and create that opportunity and be like, okay, now go conquer the world.
It was the 80s. It was, he was the biggest box office star at that time.
Yeah.
So he was so generous, and he'd have these wonderful parties, and he would have class all night. You would finish the work that you did at the theater, during the day, and then he's like, okay, kids, we're going to watch the sunrise. So then you'd do class, you'd work 24 hours there because Bert's inundated you in theater. And he gave great notes. He was really funny. He's very, very, very into just making you go outside your comfort zone. It's like, yeah, you can play that, but let's challenge you.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's where my love of, voiceover and doing things came from.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
The faith that they had in me. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What were some of the productions that you did during that time? And the reason I'm a little fascinated in particular with Charles Nelson Reilly is, I had this perspective of him from the game shows and from that kind of stuff, and he was always hilarious. But then I saw his one-man show. I didn't get to see it in person, but I saw a video of it and was just, completely blown away by his storytelling skill and his stories and all of that from Strasbourg, is that where he came up, or Harold Clurman, or Meisner, right?
Yeah, and also Uta Hagen.
Uta Hagen,
because you always talk about Miss Hagen.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm old and I forget too, but Yeah, Charles was a brilliant director. One of the shows that we did that year was Death of a Salesman with Vincent Gardenia and Julie Harris.
Come on.
Charles directed it. Two apprentices, and I'll tell the story of how they got cast in it, played Biff and Happy. And Charles had an onstage musician. This was very different for that time. Remember, this was 81.
Yeah.
And, to kind of bend Death of a Salesman in a different way was something people didn't expect. But we had class with Charles all the time, and he loved props because he says people speak that way. It's not just when you're acting. It's not bah bah bah.
Right.
He's like, so use things, and he'd always go, so what's the glass saying? It's saying I want to be in the play. The play is about the glass. So there was a class that we had, and two of the apprentices, Ken Kay and Jim Nemec, they were doing a scene about brothers. I think it was another Arthur Miller.
Okay.
And they used real glasses instead of cups.
Okay.
And one of the glasses fell off the table by accident and shattered. And they spent the rest of the scene just picking it up. Now, it wasn't planned that way. And he went nuts because he said, look what it did. It was their shattered relationship. It got you out of your head. What a fascinating scene.
Yeah.
Because it's about picking up the glass.
Yeah.
And they played Biff and Happy from that.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they gave great performances because it was just, they were out of their heads, instead of going, I must say this, I'm working with Julie Harris.
Yeah, mitigating that.
Yeah.
Like figuring out how do I work with these two legendary actors, with this legendary director in this space, and I'm who do I think I am? It's like, dude, you're the right age and you've earned it.
Yeah.
You're here. So do the job.
And that's kind of the last 6 years for me in voiceover here. I was doing something the other day, and they're like, hey, take the compliment. And it's still like, I'm just a mouth stupid. I'm just got lucky.
Yeah, but take the compliment.
I'm trying to.
Isn't it hard?
Yeah.
It really is. And, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it both when I reached out to you and before, and I think when we spoke at Scott's Christmas party, too, just in terms of, like, there's part of you that wants to think, oh, I just came out of nowhere. But at the same time, it's like, no, you've been working and doing major work. That's
like
right.
30 years of work.
And all that prepared you for how your process and all that other kind of stuff.
I think 100%. And we were ready. I mean, my wife, Deborah, and I, because it was about 6 years ago in July that we landed here, going, we'll be here 6 months. It's so hard. We knew so many people, who had been on Broadway and friends of ours that were like, I didn't make it. Yeah. And we're like, well, let's try. We'll give it a shot. The worst that happens is we'll go home. Right. And for whatever reason, we got lucky because you know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And I'm overwhelmed by everyone's kindness, and I'm learning to take the compliment because I've gotten to do some really excellent work, like some of the best work of my life. Yeah. But I do think that all that theater training, and I had done improv with the Groundlings back in the 80s,
amazing!
And I had done stand up for some reason in
That's
Florida.
Incredible.
It just happened. And for the stand up, I was looking for a job. I think after I'd left New York the first time, and there was a stand up club, and it was the big time where stand up was exploding on television and HBO, and I loved Robin Williams. Yeah. I was like, I'll get a job at the stand up club. At least I can watch. And they said, we need a host. I'm like, oh, so I'll take people to their table. And I came in for the interview, and they're like, so do 5 minutes. I'm like, I've been, what? And I got the job.
Oh, my God.
So I had to create material and introduce, like, Kevin Meaney and who else? Ellen DeGeneres was there. Rosie O'Donnell was there. Everybody spent a week there.
So all the headliners who were on their national tour at that time, you'd get to watch them, meet them, introduce them, do all that stuff. Plus you work your stuff.
Yeah, I was like Rosie O'Donnell's driver because she didn't drive at that time, so I had to pick her up all the time and hear their stories and have lunch with them. Rick Overton was great.
Oh, man.
It was like really, really, really. I think everything that I've done in all these disparate ways brought me to voiceover because they're like, oh, well, this is this way of working. Oh, okay, I get that. Yeah. Well, this job is completely different. Oh, okay, I get that. It's just being ready for anything. And improv, it's the yes and.
Completely. Yes-anding with the script, with your partner, with yourself in a way, because you're working so often by yourself, creating ideas and just saying, well, what happens if that?
Yeah.
Like I love how I love how improvisation has sort of nurtured the idea of every choice is disposable, and why not try it? And it does give you a certain. I would have said fearlessness and be glib, but I don't. But I still do feel fear about some of those choices. But I think it's more willingness to risk than fearlessness. You know?
Yeah, you just got to take a shot.
Yeah.
Make a strong choice. Maybe
Exactly.
they'll hate it. Maybe they'll love it. I did something yesterday, and it's been a very busy time. I'm knocking on everything.
Great.
But I had done a session early on where, before this, yesterday, my choices were told to me. And that's fine. You're like, okay, I get it. That's what this project is.
Right.
So I came into yesterday with that in my head. And they're like, no, we want your choices. So it's very freeing. And I went into some directions that I didn't think I'd go. And those were the ones they used. And you have to be open to anything, because some projects will go just... I worked with Keith Farley. I don't know if you know Keith Farley. Wonderful director.
Wonderful.
For 3 years, we did Final Fantasy 15,
Yeah.
playing a character that I almost did an audition for that led to... he was a handsome guy. So I told my wife, I was like, this looks like Matt Mercer. It's a Matt Mercer character. Matt is brilliant. This should be Matt Mercer's role.
Uh-huh.
And Deb was like, just give one take. You get him. He's a creep. And I did it, and I somehow got the job. But Keith would always say... on the first, because you do 3 choices when you're doing a game.
Yeah.
And he goes, on the first one, it's what you'd expect. The second one's twisted a little. And the third one is wild card. He goes, that's what Darren does. And it's like, yeah, I'll give you what you'd expect, because you look at the line really quickly and go, that's the operative word in that sentence.
Yeah.
And then, well, I'll make this one the operative word and see where it goes.
Huh.
And just changing things up.
Yeah.
And they let us do that in animation and games. And this is probably the first people will know, but it's coming out very soon. The Addams Family movie.
Yes.
Doing a lot of stuff in that.
Fantastic.
And it's mostly improv that they used for us.
No kidding.
We were just doing some fixes, and I watched a scene, and it was like 3 characters that all spoke, and they were all me, all with improvs that I had done. Because we went up to the mic. It was myself and a young lady, Michelle Ruff. I guess I can say this. I'm not giving away anything, I hope. It's coming out October 11th.
Yeah.
And they just say, okay, this is the scene, and this is what we need. Go. You go up, give 3 different choices. Then Michelle would come up, give 3 different choices. Then I'd come up and give 3. So it was improv.
Were you doing that to pencil? Were you doing that to early draft? Was it finished footage that you were working with? So they animated your choices? Or?
Yeah. Oh, I saw
early.
something. There is a hero moment that they gave to one of my things that was just based on improv.
Oh, my God.
Because we did some finishing work last week, I think. And I didn't expect it. I was just watching a scene to fix, to like do some Walla work.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. So it's those things you never believe. You're like, how did that happen?
Oh, man.
Very lucky. I'm very lucky too.
What a thrilling experience.
Yeah.
There's something about doing that feature, like, especially coming in early on, like in Scratch or table read space, where it's kind of like we're open to fishing and exploring what choices you might bring, and then you see your choices. And again, coming back to that improv thing of like, who cares? And then them selecting one and it making a movie that's going to be shared worldwide.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I guess that's what this is.
Yeah, it's just being up for anything. Well, that's how I started, because doing a lot of theater, I was at the New Jersey Shakespeare Festival doing a play. And the man working opposite me, Bruce Wynand, had a looping company in New York. This was back in the days of New York.
Okay.
And he said, I'm working on this new film, and it's animated, and I think you'd be good for it. And I want you to call me and audition over the phone. Like, Bruce, I work with you every night. I said, no, you're going to call me. I'm going to tell you what I need, and you'll audition. The movie was Ice Age. That was my first voiceover job. Worked 3 days on it, doing all the little, the dodos, the extra dinosaurs, the this, the that, the this, the that. And that's when I first went, oh, I have, the skills that might work for this line of business. Mm-hmm. It was a bad sentence. No, you do improv. You're like, this line of business.
I love that sentence though, even though it's interestingly crafted in that it is about like, I have the things that you need to do this. How would you define those things?
Having an instrument that can do a lot of stuff, being able to play a lot of characters. An early influence of mine was Peter Sellers. So just being, and improv, going, okay, in this scene, You're
I'm
this,
this
you're
guy.
that, you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
And being in theater, I was the utility guy, the
Ah.
character man. So you're going to do a lot of different characters. You know, if you're in a musical, you're going to play a lot of people in the ensemble. And
Right.
maybe have a line here, a line there, understudy everybody, learn that part, see what they need, what they're expecting from you in case you go on. And it was having all that brought me here. And voiceover's like, oh, yeah, we can use that. We need that.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
That's
It's
fantastic.
it's been a great ride to be able to, where we were at LA Studios.
Yeah.
There was one day I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I've worked with Billy West, and just sitting and having a talk with Billy West, going, this is not what I thought would ever happen in my life. These people that I idolized, now I get to work with and just hear their stories.
Yeah.
Because I just lap them up. I'm like, just talk.
Oh, man. Oh, I totally agree. Like that, just that being around it and being in the mix and feeling like it's enough. And then that feeling of getting your feet under you and the credits and the experience and the relationships and starting to go, all right, where else? What else can I do? That shift in focus of, I can't believe that I'm lucky enough to be here. Like that was one of my experiences. My first year here was like, I directed a show at Second City. I may have told you this story, but like Harrison Ford's goddaughter was in the show, and he came to see the show and then took us out for drinks and food afterwards, and to sit there talking with him about the nature of what our jobs are as actors. And like, I can't believe that I'm here. As a Harrison Ford line from a movie, I'm not here with my hat in my hand. And that phrase has been kind of a pep talk that I give myself often when I go into a space where I'm going to work with Al Pacino, or I'm going to work with Matt Damon or someone, and go, I'm not here with my hat in my hand. I'm here because I belong here. And having to remind myself that, because energetically it changes how you connect to them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If they're open, I mean, most people are really nice, what I find in our business.
I
They're
find
nice
that
and they're
to
open.
be-
If you do your job and do it well and are polite and courteous and on time.
And prepared. Know
Prepared.
what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
I have replaced some YouTubers because they were like, well, they couldn't do it. They cast them because they were well-known YouTubers in a game. And it's like they couldn't take direction. They weren't on time. They're 2 hours late.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And it's like, well, we're going to let you do the thing, and then we're going to call someone else. So
That's awesome.
and you go, hooray for them and having that shot. But it's like, you have to, I really believe that my theater training helped because working with different directors and knowing what to expect from each director, that's really powerful.
I want to talk a little bit more about that period of your life. So
Okay.
just to jump back. So you finish, you get your equity card.
Yes.
Do you go straight to New York from there?
I did.
And what was that experience and process like for you?
Mind-numbingly exciting because I went there. I did a couple little shows in Florida first because I was dating a girl who was the year after me at Burt Reynolds' Apprentice.
Okay.
So I was kind of in that circle still. And then we both went together, and I got into the Groundlings in New York when the Groundlings had come from L.A. It was their-
Okay.
And with Siobhan Fallon was in my year, went on to Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I love this. I'm going to be an improv actor in New York.
What was it about Groundlings that sort of not only captured your imagination, but made it feel like this was kind of a home or a great place to transition into?
When I first got to New York, I was like, because Charles Nelson Riley had like Uta Hagen.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to go study with her. And Kit and I went and studied and got in her class.
Uh-huh.
And she didn't get me at all. Had no idea what I was doing. And I felt like I was spinning my wheels. And then I went to Groundlings and took a class. And they were like, yeah, you're funny. You're good. We're going to make you better. We get what you do. And we're going to hone the rough edges. And we're going to give you a work ethic. And I was like,
Please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm home. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, again, creating a lot of characters, writing for yourself, writing monologues,
Yeah.
knowing, that's the word that's going to end the joke.
Right.
Work toward musical improv. Love it.
Yeah.
Work backwards. It's my final
right.
joke. So now I got to work backwards.
Come up with a couplet that will help me land the blow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
with games, there's a couple times they'll ask us to improvise or ask us to make up songs and things.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, fine. Let's do it.
It's the greatest training for this work.
Yeah.
It really is.
But also having that instrument that is open to anything. And I did scream my way in a lot of ways by doing creatures. And I still do a lot of creatures. But it's like doing that monster stuff.
Oh, man.
I did musicals, so I guess.
So you know how to properly protect your pipes so that you can do.
I mean, I feel that, I get hurt. They always say, you take the Nim Jump Apicoa and you try, but you go and get hurt sometimes because they're going to push you.
Yes, they are.
When we did Shazam, we did the 7 Deadly Sins in Shazam, the Shazam movie. It's Fred Tatasciore and Steve Bloom and myself. Awesome. And they were really protective. We worked a lot on that.
That's terrific.
But did another film with a creature, and they just push, more, louder. And you're there. You got to say yes, but you're like, oh, this is going to hurt. And it did. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm down for a couple days.
Yeah.
And you miss work, so I learned from that.
What's placement, If you're doing that, you just put it at the back of the throat like you're singing bass.
Where are you putting it? Is it?
It's here.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's here.
You tend to hollow out your cheeks and do that.
So down here.
Yeah.
In this place.
Well, because I did the Little Shop of Horrors national tour after Broadway. And I covered Mushnick and then took over. But Michael James Leslie, who played the Plant, was this brilliant performer. And I'd watch him. I was on the road for 2 years with that show. So just watch. And then there was a regional production at Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey where I worked a lot.
Okay.
And they said, we want you to cover again Mushnick. We're not going to give you the role. I'm like, all right, I needed the work.
Sure.
We also want you to cover the Plant. I'm like, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Who's playing it? Michael James Leslie. I'm like, oh, well, he's the best. And I know his rhythms. And the puppeteers, the Henson puppeteers, were going to do, the puppets. And I'm like, okay, Michael doesn't miss. I've been on the road with 2 years. Michael doesn't miss. Sure, I'll do it. I'm ready. Michael missed. Michael missed early on. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah, baby. I was so ready to do that role. To say, feed me, Seymour.
And I was like, oh, boy.
Oh, that's so great.
And it's just knowing how he did it and watching it.
Yeah.
And then when Creatures came along, it's like, oh, it's the placement. It's the placement of where we did the Plant. And singing, Get It and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, man. I had done Audrey 2 at Bowling Green State University and auditioned to play the Plant. And as my ex-wife was in grad school at the time, so I wanted to be involved in what she was doing, and there was nothing else around aside from Toledo, and there was not any theater going on. So I was like, well, I can do shows. So I auditioned for Little Shop for both The Dentist and then Audrey 2. I'm a baritone. So to be able to get that low, I was really challenged. So what I did was, in my audition, I did it as Bruce Willis doing The Return of Bruno. So I was, would you like a Cadillac car? So I was going way more like, let me put the soul on it rather than the depth. And the music director was like, okay, if I can have that. So he and the director fought, but ended up winning. And I played that role, played the Plant as a baritone, and was able to find, transpose stuff, which I'm sure, they would roll over in their grave about.
Oh, it was, because it was the Alan Menken and everyone were involved at that point, and it's you don't do that.
If you can't do it, you don't do it.
Yeah.
There was one other kid who was there, an undergrad, who had he had that really, really not robust, but he had a very deep voice, and he could sing the part, but it wasn't soulful. So, as a college production, I got away with it.
That's what we do.
Fun. It is.
Yeah, because you're like, okay, anything can happen here.
Yes.
When you're doing it at the level of, of Broadway and national tour, it's like, okay, we're playing with the top people here.
That's right.
So there's a certain expectation. And it also happens in games and animation.
100%.
It's like, but when you're doing a smaller production or something just starting out, it's like, we don't know. Yeah. When we were doing Overwatch, it was, you never know, any game, really.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it might be a hit, it might not, but we'll throw our heart and souls into it.
Yeah.
And then it explodes. But you're like, oh, well, I'm going to give everything I have up here in my head and up here in my heart to this character.
Yeah.
Everyone you do. I mean, when people ask what's your favorite, how can you answer that?
It's impossible to answer that question.
While you're doing it, it has to be your favorite. You have to fall in love with every character, whether it be a small character in Hearthstone or a major character that you work on for years.
Yeah.
While you're doing it, you're in love with that character.
100%.
You fall in love with all of it. I'm like, how can you reduce it? Sorry, I get very esoteric and very like.
It's so true.
We're listening. What are you doing? You're making a lot of gestures, and we're listening to a lovely podcast, and I can't see you.
I cannot see your gestures. You can swing your arms all about the studio.
When I was in Spider-Man.
Huh? Spider-Man.
Yes. When I created Spider-Man. I love doing Stan Lee because there was a special moment. I don't really do conventions. I've only done like a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I did the, Stan Lee's Kamikaze or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used to see you do
That's right. Voice NATO.
Yeah. And because Scott would bring me there. And I was at a table once and I was walking in. And I was just like, why am I here? I don't know why I'm saying. And he just said, where do I go next? Who do I see? I'm like, it's Stan Lee. Like, that's why I came here.
Did you meet him?
I didn't meet him. I was too nervous.
Man, I have the same thing both with Stan Lee, and I never didn't stand in line and do it. I haven't done Shatner, and I'm okay with that. But every time we go and Nichelle Nichols is still there, I keep feeling like, Sherry, come on. We should go and say hi. And she's selling like earrings now. And we have a black velvet painting of her in our bedroom. I commissioned for her birthday a couple of years ago a black velvet painting of Nichelle Nichols as Uhura. And it's stunning. It's stunning. And like the impact of that woman, like, sorry, it's true.
Yeah.
The impact of that woman on television history and on my wife is significant, but there's still that, I don't know if I want to have that experience. I maybe want to leave it there. I don't know.
And things have changed now because I think I got here at the right time.
Yeah.
It was all just magical that any of this happened for me. But it just all of a sudden seemed to be exploding in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of representation in gaming and in animation. And that people are seeing themselves in different projects and follow it. And that they know us.
Yeah.
That we aren't just invisible and that the performers mean something, that the work is reaching out and touching them and, just making them feel special and making them feel like a hero.
Yeah.
Which I love. I'll hear stories from people. I'm just sit there smiling and they're, it's like, thanks. I'm as much a fan as you. I mean, it's so cool.
It's like, in a way, as a theater actor, and you go up and you do shows on stage nightly, whether it's New York, whether it's Detroit, Cleveland, where you're getting up and just playing and you're reaching this audience, to be able to participate in a thing that reaches so many people and touches them in that way. It's like I feel like humbled by it and really have this respect of this kind of the weight that is associated with it. I think with theater, that code of ethics is kind of embedded in the mythos surrounding it. And certainly by the people who instruct you.
Yeah.
That you're like, you respect this space. The show must go on and you must be there and you must be prepared for it. And that work ethic.
Well, my teachers were like, what J.K. Simmons in, what's the movie where he's...
Oh, Whiplash.
Whiplash. I mean, that was my college professor. These people were tough.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do it, get out.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not like that now. Everybody's wonderful. And you're like, no, that's where I come from.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you better step up.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why, I approach it a different way. And I've worked with theater directors who were like that. It was like, no, people are paying for this. Yeah. We're not fooling around up there, kids.
That's right.
And maybe the theatricality got me to where I am, playing, roles like Reinhardt who are very big. And also J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man games.
Yes.
Because he's over the top and he's great. Doing those things, they're like, oh, you get it, you can ground it, but it's still very theatrical. It's still bigger than life, but there's a heart to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because coming from stage where you got to fill a room.
You got to fill a room.
Yeah.
You're not loud enough. I've always told students at Second City, like before a show too, it's like, you're not loud enough unless you can hear yourself off the back wall. Yeah. It's like sonar. And if you're not developing your ear for that, I'm never going to hear you. They're never going to hear you. Your scene partners are never going to hear you. But learning how to be truthful in that, and that, to rebel against that announcery read. It's not about volume. It's about intention.
And that's
It's
why I
about
came
connection.
here. Because in New York, I did a lot of work in New York. I mean, I was 8 years on Geico doing commercials for Geico.
Oh, no kidding.
The ones where the storyteller would
Yeah.
turn, that was me.
No kidding.
That's what paid for my trip here.
That's great.
But that's what I had. In New York, it's commercial.
Yeah, same in Chicago.
And it's those guys that just can get there and go, cars. You like cars. Buy a car. And like, okay, that's not me. They're going to get the job. I keep going in. And I would do the Geico job. And that would be, like, I'd do some theater, but the Geico job would be my job. And you work maybe once or twice a year, make a lovely amount of money, but you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And I was doing a play called Old Jews Telling Jokes.
Uh-huh.
It was off Broadway. It was wonderful. And there were a couple of California actors who were like, try it. Just try it.
How long
We're here.
How long had you been kicking the tires of coming out? Like kind of always, or just sort of like, I know for me, the thing that kept me back was always, I know that I'm good at what I do, but I don't know that I'm that good. And I had not necessarily inflated the Los Angeles talent in my head, because there are people who are staggeringly good here. But, it's that feeling of like, am I good enough to compete? And then go.
I still feel that. But I would I love listening to podcasts. And I would listen to a lot of them in New York. Just I'd walk to this place called Cozy, and COSI. It was in Union Square.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. It's gone. And I would listen to my podcast and get my work done for the day. And about VO, about San Diego Comic-Con, about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, it's LA. So Deb and I were like, let's try San Diego Comic-Con. Let's go see what it's like. And we went to see so that was 7 years ago.
Okay.
And we decided, well, yeah, because we played theaters in New York. We played the Amundsen. Deb had played many other theaters and played San Diego. And I remember we were going to see a friend of ours at the Geffen doing a production of The Exorcist, a play version of The Exorcist.
Oh, man.
We're going to combine it with going to Comic-Con and seeing The Exorcist. And we were like being sightseers, because we're New Yorkers. And Deb said, oh, I could see us living here. I remember the exact spot. And then a year later, we were there, because I went, oh, it's not a dream. We're going to do this. At that moment, it was at the mall in Costa Mesa. There's a bridge from one end of the mall to the other. And we visited it on the anniversary this year. We're like 7 years ago, we stood here and went, oh, I could see us here. Let's try.
Yeah.
And she's been doing TV and still doing
it's
theater.
so amazing.
And it's because it's hard. She's back in New York doing stuff now.
That is
If you're doing this life, you do make sacrifices.
Yep.
And never seeing each other, or we don't have children because she would be out on a tour, get back, and then I go on a tour for 2 years. So it's like 4 years you don't see each other. Man. But you're making a living and you love and support the work that's being done.
Yeah. It's so important to have that agreement in the relationship.
Yeah.
And that was certainly part of our deal of like, look, you do what you do and I do what I do, and I love you. So I want you to be able to be the fullness of who you need to be. And that might mean that we're apart for a while, and that's okay.
And that's getting very esoteric. That's voice acting. That's a character. I love you. We may be apart for a while, but I'm going to return to you, and that's okay. It's like the acceptance of that may be very, I've gone from being a New Yorker to being Californian. I'm like, I love you and I'll come back to you. But it is. It's like you're going to visit these people that you play once or twice a year, maybe more if you're lucky.
Yep.
But it's like coming home. It's like, oh, when I'm in the booth, I am in love with you.
Yeah.
I am, I am this person. Every choice that you make goes to advance the story, goes to advance them. It's not just playing around.
Yeah.
It's about, that someone's going to hear this, and maybe on their lowest day, that will pick them up, make them laugh, cry, make them, just make them excited. And you go, there's a responsibility.
Yeah.
It's like what we did, 8 shows a week. You're like, there is a responsibility to every audience that comes in.
Yep. It was that story about Joe Dimaggio. Someone said that Joe
Famous
DiMaggio,
Broadway actor.
famous Broadway actor Joe DiMaggio,
Joe DiMaggio.
Shocked millions when he switched to become a baseball player for the New York Yankees.
Joe DiMaggio hitting a home run in Damn Yankees. It's a baseball show.
Joe DiMaggio hitting a home run and Take Me Out. It's a strange
did
choice.
you see
but
that?
I didn't see it. I had a couple
did.
friends who were in it. How?
Oh, They were baseball players?
No.
It's coming back. There's a revival coming back.
Is it really?
Yes. Most people are naked in that show.
Most people are. Well, Daniel Sinjato, didn't he premiere that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, is that your friend?
No, my friend is Danny Master Giorgio. Do you know Danny?
I
at
know
all?
that name.
You know Danny from New York? He was in Company. He can sing.
Yeah.
He was a Juilliard guy, and we did a show in Pittsburgh together called Gompers, an Adam Rapp show. And Anthony was in that show as well.
Anthony was our Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors.
Get out of
Bring
here.
it back together.
Oh.
My wife just did Rent on Fox, Rent Live,
Yeah.
and Anthony showed up at the end, to sing with them.
so great.
Anthony's been part of our life for a long time.
If you talk to him anytime, tell him I said hi because we did.
I think he's off doing Star Trek.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Up in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
A
so
good show,
great.
by the way.
Yeah.
I love it. Star Trek Discovery. Well, I'm a big Star Trek fan.
I love Star Trek too. I just need to pull the trigger on CBS All Access.
It's really good. Sorry.
Oh, that's good.
Once you see it, you'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I
I'm
saw
so
this.
hyped for Picard too. I can't wait.
So you got to. I got to. And, we're now doing a commercial for CBS.
That's right.
Joe DiMaggio hits
Joe
a home
DiMaggio.
run with CBS All Access.
Thank you for bringing me back to Joe DiMaggio. That was the reference.
Joe DiMaggio.
Because Joe DiMaggio once said, why do you play so hard, Joe DiMaggio? Every time you go out, and he says, because no matter what city I'm in, no matter what's happening, there's someone in that studio. There's someone in that stadium who's never seen me play.
Yeah.
And I got to bring my Joe DiMaggio-ness to it. I think it was Joe DiMaggio who said that. But for the purposes
It was
of this
John
story,
DiMaggio.
It was John DiMaggio.
It was
said
Ben Hearn.
But yeah, it's that work ethic. I
Yeah.
think is so but like the work ethic is what makes it fun.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, like I can when I drive up onto the Warner Brothers lot to go to ADR 3, like that means it's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite rooms in town.
I was there all last week, and I couldn't believe that I got to drive on the lot. And they're like, we'll park under the water tower. And you're like, every day on this lot, I can have lunch here? And you just walk around, and I geek out and go, this is where I work. And I was talking to, I did a show called Three Below, the Guillermo del Toro animated show in Troll Hunters.
Yeah.
And one of the board artists, she's there working on another show. And we met for breakfast, and we stood under the water tower, and we're like, this is our life now. And it's those moments. I'm very sentimental. I do that a lot. It's just like, look at where we are. Now, enjoy this moment, because when it gets bad, and it will in our career.
Yes, it does.
Remember, and if it helps you get through, good. You stood there under the water tower and went, I'm working.
Yeah.
This is my life.
Yeah.
Because it's important. There's so many days where you don't work.
So many.
Yeah.
And like it's real easy to look at other people's Facebook posts and Instagram posts and their life and go, oh man, they're working and I'm not for whatever reason. It's a Tuesday and I'm sitting on my couch at 3:00 in the afternoon with nothing going on and no prospects.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, but in Los Angeles at 3:30, a life-changing email could come. Or just the possibility of, here's an audition. If you book it, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
It's life-changing. And then that challenge, it's like, I don't remember if it's 100% from the Bible or from a story around it, but there was like a pool that all the lepers would sit around, and then every once in a while the water would swirl, and then they would all rush to the water because it might be the time that their life changed.
That was Joe DiMaggio.
That was Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio.
That's right. Joe DiMaggio would
Everything
stir
is in the pool. Stir the pool. And go, every day I do this
would cure your
because one of
leprosy.
these lepers could be cured today.
It's a life-changing, it's a gift I give the people of New York and
Exactly.
the lepers of the world.
Hundreds of years from now, Kiff or Darren is going to voice that leper. And we have to... Sorry.
And we will have accomplished the goal of giving that person temporary immortality on a
Full
podcast.
circle. Well, yeah, I mean, again, going back to stuff we talked about earlier, going to the Stan Lee Kamikaze, the first year is just a guest and going with Scott White, our friend. And he's like, oh, I'm doing this panel. That's the first time I saw you. You were hosting the panel. And Fred Tatasciore was on the panel, all these great people. And I'm just sitting there and you go, will I be part of this world? Because you go, they're just so talented, so, so funny, so quick.
Yeah.
And now to be part of it, it's like, I'm lucky.
Yeah, I hear you. But you're also, and not to deny you, because yes you are lucky. I'm lucky too. And everybody up there too in that same place of like, I'm lucky as well. But there's those conditions that need to be in place that improve your luck 100-fold.
Good agent,
Good agent.
Good agent that believes in you. And
Yeah.
being grateful.
Yep.
Being talented, of course, is what you got to do. You got to do the
that's baseline.
That's basic.
That's room tone.
But it's like being fun to work with.
Yep.
Being on time, being early. Theater half hour early is on time.
That's right.
And it's these little rules of I'm just here. I'm ready to work. I am yes.
Yes.
When I'm in the booth, everything's yes.
That's right. How do you take direction that might seem like counterintuitive or frustrating, and how do I keep my ego in check, matched to a direction that seems counterintuitive, and I have to go, I didn't consider that. My initial response to that direction is, that's a ridiculous direction. But it's not my job to judge the direction I get. It's to take it, and maybe something will emerge.
On a rare occasion, I'll ask. And I did recently got shut down. And, you get upset because I'm just, I'm asking. I want to be a partner here.
Yeah.
It's like, do you feel, where does that come from in the character? I know it's very uppity and actory, but it was like, I don't understand that direction. I've played this character for a while, so I think I could ask. And I was shot down. Boy. So you're like, okay, well, there you go. Just my job is to do it, lift it off the page and give it life.
Right.
If that's the way they see it, cool. That's the way it's going to be.
Right.
But you have to do it and go, I'm here. I'm committed. I'm going to give it my all.
Yep.
You don't get pouty and go, it wasn't my choice. I'm mad.
I'm just mad at that. It was totally wrong, and I'm gonna be very upset.
You don't be a baby.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. Just wanted to double check.
Well, that's what you do. It's just,
right.
It's a world of yes. It's being really positive.
Yeah. I think that attitude is a really important component, and I think that's part of why so many, people talk about the voice acting community. I've had a lot of people come in here and the other rooms I've been in going, I don't know what it is about VO people, but I love them. They're just so, and a lot of that has to do with a positive attitude will get you so much further than you think. You know what I mean? Like, I certainly felt that way when I came out here of like, well, I'm going to give it a shot. And I mean, how can you dislike the weather, and how can you dislike the fact that we're working in the shadow of the Hollywood sign, and that the people I get to meet are cool, but it's on the days where you're not working that's really where the work is, and then the work is to have the choice of having a hopeful, positive attitude, and let that keep you in momentum. Yeah, making reels. Developing new characters, playing with stuff, just having lunch with someone or connecting or creating a podcast,
And that's great. I mean, that as a New Yorker, I do find myself, and I started therapy last year because it can be very isolating out here. New York, you're running people all the time. Yeah. Here, my wife's out of town a lot, and sometimes it's just like, whoa, you just feel so at sea if you're not working.
Yep.
And that's hard for, you need that human connection.
Yeah.
So it's hard to establish that. And I have to work on it better.
Dude,
I used
to
do stuff. Everyone's like that. Sissy
I know,
Jones
but
was saying it the other day.
But it's true.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's it is something that's fascinating about being a parent, was that discovery of like, I was, when we got to Chicago, I was like, well, I know there's one or two people I can call. My family wasn't there, but when the baby came, like, people showed up out of nowhere. People on the bus, people on the subway, or the L, depending on what part of town you're in, but be like, what do you need? Like, it was so much a point. I remember one time I went to Jewel Osco, and I was standing, had the baby.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
But Jewel Osco in line with a baby on my chest, hands full of diapers and stuff, and I was a pretty heavy Diet Coke drinker at that point in time. And I'm in line, and there's a 20-ounce cooler, but it's low, and like a fool, I didn't grab a cart. But I'm taking the train, so I don't want enough that I'm gonna, And I asked this lady behind me, I'm so sorry to bother, but would you hand me a Diet Coke from that thing? She was like, get your own Diet Coke. And it was shocking to be greeted with that level of contempt as a parent after the amount of goodwill that had been coming my way, that I got spoiled by.
I remember, this is a New York moment that I had. We're on 14th Street, and there was I don't think it's there anymore, it was a grocery store. And my father, my parents had passed, and my mother went first. Long story. But my father was not doing well. And I was in the grocery store, and I got the call from my sister. It was like, he's gone. And I was grocery shopping, and I just was devastated.
Yeah.
And this little older woman, very older woman, I shouldn't say, Misty Lee will play her in the animated series, like our friends will do. She's like, will you hand me some yogurt? And I'm like, my father just died, and I can't. And she hugs me. She's like, it'll be okay. He's always with you. And you're just like, that's New York. That's what you're used to.
Yeah.
Of a stranger going, we're people. We're connecting.
Yeah.
And that leads us back to what we do. I mean, there's so much connection with games and animation and the people that watch it and listen and work on it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful time to do that and to reach out and go, because I do a lot of animation, and they'll have played the games, or you do animation and the game people have watched it.
Yeah.
It's this wonderful small circle of positivity.
Yeah.
It's somebody in a grocery store reaching out and hugging you and going, it's going to be okay. We're here with you. And those are the moments that we're the most human.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I like that. I mean, I'm getting very esoteric on this.
Dude,
It was
I
supposed to
love
be-
it.
They were like, when are we going to do the funny voices?
We've done plenty of funny voices.
Oh, really?
I mean,
That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's right. I think.
Yes.
That's what it is. What I love about I think being an artist and maintaining a certain sense of emotional availability that can be really tricky in a place that can hammer you a lot.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your openness, feeling that that distance from your wife, from what self-care do you do to keep yourself?
I read a lot. I did start therapy, which was great because of Julie Nathanson, who recommended
great.
somes who's
Yeah.
a wonderful voice actress and also knows,
Yeah.
and that really helped because you do feel at sea sometimes. So
Yeah.
I did that. Just talk to someone if you're lonely.
Yeah.
Because 2017 was an amazing year. Everything's great. Then at the end of 2017, some stuff happened that all took it away from me. And then 2018 was like, what happened?
Oh man.
With things, with some on-camera stuff that I was doing and everything. You're just
Gotcha.
like, whoa, and you feel. So I got to get out of my head because I'll still drive around and go, if only, and I'll tell that person, and they'll be sorry that they're
If
not.
only I.
Yeah, and it's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. Just support and just be there for someone. Be there in the grocery store when they're at their lowest to say, we're here and it's okay.
Yeah.
And maybe at your lowest, you got to keep that in your mind. But I'm thankful that I work a lot. Working really helps me.
Yes.
Auditioning, working really helps.
Amen.
I went into something yesterday that they treated me so well, and I was like, I don't deserve this. And they were writing some extra lines. They're like, we need a little time. And it's not. And they were like, it's not. And I'm like, oh, no, this is great. But then adding the juice to it, the smile on the writer's face going, you just brought something I didn't expect. It's like, it's those moments. Like, we're working together to elevate these words.
Yeah.
And that's theater. It's like, and that was a cool moment. Yesterday was the past 3 months have been pretty darn great.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, because there was some slow period at the beginning of the year. Because
Yeah.
you never know when projects are going to happen or projects that you think are going to happen get canceled.
Yes.
That you thought was going to be a long-term gig. And you're like, oh, this show ain't happening.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it. And
That's what shows do. They end every show.
or never get done.
Or never get done.
Hadestown's a brilliant show on Broadway. We saw it in April. We have a couple friends on it. It's absolutely brilliant. 10 years to get to Broadway. 10 years. I'm amazed that things ever get done. I've worked on games that got canceled after we worked 6 months on them.
Oh, man.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
That's the nature of, I guess, maybe any business, but especially the entertainment business.
Yeah.
Is it could hit or it. We did this game called Agents of Mayhem
Yes.
that I loved.
Uh-huh.
I had so much fun. The writers were great. The cast, Sissy Joe, everybody was great. And
Oh, Larissa Gallagher.
Larissa Gallagher. Just everybody thought people will love this. For some reason, maybe it was timing, maybe it just never took off like anybody had hoped.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, darn it.
Yep.
And then something else that you don't expect. Like, we'll look at Overwatch was, it's a Blizzard game. There are people going to like it, but that it became this phenomenon. I don't think you weren't really ready for that. You're like, oh, I'm so glad people are connecting with this.
How have you handled that the kind of fandom and fame that is associated with the attention that has come with some of these projects that you've been involved with?
I always dress up.
I
As
noticed
you
that
see,
dressed up
I'm
today.
wearing right now. It's
Why that?
okay. Well, my dad was a clothing designer.
Ah,
So in Palm Beach, that was his business. So it's always about dressing well. I'm a New Yorker. I like dressing up.
Yeah.
When I got in California, I didn't really, because you can't wear it at sessions.
right.
But then I became known. I started dressing up for stuff at Geek and Sundry because I liked doing it. And they were like, "Oh, you're Darin De Paul. You're more like Darin De Paul F. Tompkins, who I adore.
He's a
Paul F.
great
Tompkins'
guy,
work.
too.
And he dresses up.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, that's not a bad thing to do. I like dressing up. I like looking presentable.
Yep.
Not to be weird, but I have been in grocery stores, and they're like, "Oh, are you Darin?" Yeah. Which is weird, coming out of a stage door when you're in a play and nobody cares because you were like in the ensemble or maybe an understudy, and you just feel like I'm doing my gig, but nobody cares. To now, when people, have tattoos of my character on their arm, we had to get here at Comic-Con, to go to Comic-Con, 7 years ago. I wonder if I'll ever be part of this world. This year at Comic-Con, the Hasbro exclusive was a Reinhardt figure. That's crazy. You go, what a journey that is to just show up and go, I love this. I know how hard it is. I don't think it'll ever happen. To then go, oh, this character is one of the Hasbro exclusives. And
how you participated is contributing to that thing.
I hope.
Oh,
I
yeah.
give it my all. I give it my
course.
heart. Look, I've been waiting in a career of ups and downs and a lot of downs.
Yeah.
This has been a wonderful 6 years.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying every second of it because as an actor, it can end tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
You just kind of throw yourself into it and be positive and enjoy the ride. I get to work with great people. Sitting there, working on Shazam and watching Fred Tatasciore do character monster noises and then go, oh, do you want like a Doppler effect with bubbles on top for this? And Steve Bloom and I were going, oh, he can't do it. And then he does it. And you're like, I am so happy I'm in this room.
Oh, man.
I am so thrilled to watch this artist perform.
Yeah.
And Fred and Steve
Fred,
are the kindest people ever.
To be, yeah. I mean, just one of the most generous, thoughtful people that I know professionally and personally.
We go to the same gym, so I see him all the
that's
time,
great.
and it's just him and his little baby.
Ah,
Got to see the baby,
that's so
and
awesome.
it's just again to be part of it.
Yeah.
Because I respect so many people in this business.
Yes.
To know, like Kari Wahlgren and Scott White and just Matt Mercer.
Yeah.
These people are great. Touching on that, I don't know if you have the role playing world.
I haven't
has
really.
exploded.
I know it. I've noticed that it has begun to really.
Yeah, I was involved in that a little bit. About Critical Role.
Yes.
They tried to do
Oh my God,
the animated Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they asked for $750,000 to do one episode. They got $11 million. There is an audience out there for cooperative storytelling, and they want to see these characters live. So it's a very exciting time to be a nerd,
Yes.
to be a voiceover performer, to be an actor,
Yeah.
to be an audience member, because these stories are being told.
Oh man. And then and radio dramas.
Oh yeah,
Like Sherry's doing one coming up this week, and it's like to see these old forms from the 20s and 30s return. I mean, before I was here, I swung by Amoeba and bought a record and like the soundtrack to Bronson, Nicholas Winding Refn. Or Winding Refn with Tom Hardy. Anyway.
Well, one of our things about coming home when we first got here, because we're such theater people, was going to Largo and watching Thrilling Adventure Hour.
Oh, God.
And now I'm really good friends with Hal Lublin, and
Yeah. Do you know Mark Evan Jackson? Do you know him?
I met him on many occasions.
Okay.
But I've done a podcast with Mark Gagliardi, and I'm really close to Hal Lublin.
So great.
Hal and I have spent a lot of time together.
Awesome.
And again, incredibly talented and just a generally wonderful human being.
Yeah.
But that was home to me. I'm like, this is theater. I love this. And the excitement of let's take this older radio form, make it new, make it a monthly event. I'm so sorry it's not happening now. They're doing improv every month.
They are.
At Dynasty Typewriter.
Okay.
Joe Dimaggio hitting a home run, plugging Dynasty Typewriter. Work Juice Improv. See it the last Wednesday of every month. I'm there most Wednesdays. I love it. It's great.
That's great.
Because having that, if you go to an improv show, a really good one,
Yeah.
I think it's good for voiceover. Just to see the different choices. You got to think quickly. Well, looking at the scripts. When we did Jonah Jameson for the Spider-Man game, Chris Zimmerman, the director, she's like, I don't want you to look at these long speeches before you start. Just go. She's like, I want you to ride the wave of the line. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So it's a cold read. And I normally went with the first take. Because you're like, okay, I am the character. I'm in the moment. Flash it up on the screen. Let's go. Unless you choke up on a word.
Right.
It's like you're making these strong choices so quickly.
And he's like a Rush Limbaugh type of personality in the game, in the game world. And like what you do in that game is so much fun.
Oh, thank you.
It really is.
It was supposed to be a day.
How many days did you end up working?
Oh, God, a lot. They
There's
kept
a ton
writing.
of J.
They
Jonah
love
Jameson.
it.
It's so great.
It was joyful because it was just a little thing. And then it got to be a very important part of the game. And I'm so grateful for that.
It adds so much depth to that New York. And, I was
playing with Hal because Hal was showing me the game, and we were swinging around trying to find my apartment in New York. Like, let's go to this place, this part of town, Lower East Side, blah, blah, blah. And it's a gorgeous game. It's a wonderful world.
Boy.
But games are so immersive.
Yeah.
They're spending so much time with these characters that we create that you've got to give 100%. And that's what I love. It's that theater thing. The curtain is up when we walk in the booth.
That's right.
Makes me happy.
Makes me happy, too.
It does. You make me happy.
You make me happy. We make each other happy, and that's a win. High five one more time.
Indeed.
There it is. Ow. So we're quickly coming to the end. The curtain is dropping on this episode.
Indeed.
And I think anyone with the amount of advice that you've peppered throughout this thing in terms of all the different places, the things that have strengthened your skill set, that also imprinted on your work ethic and your attitude and all those things that have helped make this process a success for you. You're, along with, and that's not to say, look at Darin De Paul is sitting on top of the world.
He has a pocket square. It's a podcast,
right?
And he's wearing a pocket handkerchief.
But an acknowledgement too of the downs that are universally experienced, and should be, because they make the highs that much higher, and help you. I do think when you're down in the valley that you're also drawing some water out of the creek and getting the nourishment that you need that you don't get in the thin air. And
it'll lead you. If you are at that point, sometimes I find an audition may come through that you're like, I'm not right for this, but I'm going to give it a shot, because I am so sad, I'm so depressed, and you might give a cool read on something. If you, not that I'm going to play him sad, but it's like, bring some different energy to it.
Yeah.
It may change their mind, or they may go, that was weird.
Yeah.
There was something that came in the other day. They were so vague. I didn't know how to do it. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to give a choice.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
It comes back to improv. It's giving a strong choice. It may not be the choice they're looking for, but they might go, oh, that was cool, maybe down the line. Does happen.
You bet it does.
That they'll go, I heard you on this. We didn't use you, but we thought of you for this thing.
You were the guy so many times, and it went the other way.
Yeah.
Like, I just had an audition recently, an on-camera audition, where it was a one-line co-star thing. And I went in and did it, and the girl afterwards was like, that was really good. She's like, these are usually the hard ones because there's nothing to go on. And I was like, no, that's a blank check. That is a gift to me that there's no other life for this character. I get to create it. And in that way, I feel even more invested in the project because I got to bring my own toys and add something that you guys were like, and there's a guy who walks in and does a thing and leaves. I'm like, well, what if that guy is this way? Or is Joe Dimaggio.
Yeah, well, it's like that's your show.
Yeah.
And we would go, for an on-stage audition.
Yeah.
It's like probably won't get it, but here's your 2 minutes of your show. So put on a good show.
Put on a good show. Darin De Paul, thank you so much. How can
Kiff.
people find you? Are you on social media? And that kind of
I
stuff?
am. I'm on just Darin De Paul at Twitter, and I do that. I'm on Instagram too. I should do more. I don't know.
It's all right.
I'm very lucky and very grateful and excited to be part of this community. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming in, and that was just fantastic. And thank you for listening. And there'll be more coming soon, coming to you from Studio Awesome, the most awesome studio in Los Angeles. Thanks so much for listening. Peace. This has been All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please go to iTunes and give us a positive rating. It truly helps. Follow me on Twitter at KiffVH, or on Instagram at KiffVH, or on Vero at KiffVH. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon. Claim victory and depart the field.
Werewolf?
Yeah.